Online, exaggeration is almost expected. Filters, personas, selective truths, all of it has become normal enough that most audiences instinctively discount whatever they see on their screen. But every once in a while, someone pushes that exaggeration so far that it stops being performative and starts becoming pathological. This is one of those cases. In a span of months, a man who was barely known outside a niche corner of TikTok managed to speedrun almost every possible form of internet self-destruction. He went from being mildly popular to being mocked relentlessly, to being exposed for lying about nearly every aspect of his identity, and finally to being arrested on charges so serious that they permanently altered how his story would be remembered. Not because he was unlucky, not because the internet was cruel, but because nearly everything about him was manufactured, and sooner or later, fabricated lives collapse under their own weight. When Josiah Kane de Fuente first began gaining traction online, his presence immediately felt artificial, even by TikTok standards. He didn't rise through creativity, humor, or insight. His visibility came from appearance, posturing, and an attempt to embody a stereotype that was already deeply mocked online. His entire persona was built around being an Edgar, a slang term that had become shorthand for a very specific caricature, exaggerated bravado, forced toughness, and a look defined almost entirely by a sharply lined haircut that mimicked gang aesthetics without the reality behind them. The irony is that Josiah wasn't even the originator of this image. He was copying someone else entirely. Another TikToker, known online as Murder Ricky, had already established himself using a similar look and attitude, but with far more reach. Ricky's popularity, particularly among younger girls, seemed to flip a switch in Josiah's mind. Instead of carving out his own lane, he began imitating Ricky almost wholesale. The poses, the facial expressions, the captions, even the cadence of his videos. Before this transformation, Josiah was largely invisible online. He was already in his early 20s when he began posting in 2023, which placed him well outside the age bracket of the audience he was clearly targeting. And while he occasionally claimed to be younger, court records would later confirm he was born in 2001. His height was another point of insecurity. Depending on the day, he claimed to be anywhere between 5'3" and 5'8", often styling his hair upward to appear taller. Official documents, however, consistently listed him at just over 5 feet. Once the Edgar persona was fully adopted, the attention arrived almost immediately. Early uploads racked up millions of views. Comment sections flooded with praise, flotation, and parasocial attachment. For the first time, people were paying attention to him, not for who he was, but for who he was pretending to be. And that distinction mattered more than he realized. Almost from the beginning, there were warning signs. One of his earliest viral boosts came from redirecting TikTok traffic to his Twitter account, where he had uploaded explicit content involving a woman. Even at the time, viewers questioned whether the video had been shared consensually. After later arrests and allegations, those concerns took on a much darker tone. The pattern was already forming: attention at any cost, boundaries be damned. At the same time, Josiah began leaning hard into a criminal image. He tattooed the number 13 onto his face, a symbol widely associated with MS-13, one of the most violent gangs in the United States. There was no ambiguity in what he was trying to signal. He wanted viewers to believe he was affiliated. He wanted fear, mystique, and perceived danger to become part of his brand. The problem was that he wasn't affiliated, not remotely. And unlike pretending to be wealthy or pretending to be famous, pretending to be a gang member carries real-world consequences. Especially when the people watching your content include individuals who actually live that life. By late 2023, cracks began to show. Josiah appeared online with visible injuries, a black eye in November, another months later. To an uncritical audience, it looked like evidence of street fights, reinforcing the image he was selling. In reality, court documents told a different story. He had been arrested for assault with a deadly weapon and was out on bond. He had active court dates while simultaneously posting content glamorizing violence. None of this was visible to the average TikTok viewer. Court records aren't viral. But lies rarely stay contained, and by early 2024, Josiah's online trajectory began to shift. His focus moved away from polished posts and toward TikTok live streams, where his carefully curated persona was much harder to maintain. In real time, without edits or filters, inconsistency surfaced quickly. Viewers noticed his speech patterns changed depending on who he was talking to. His toughness evaporated under pressure. And his age, something he constantly avoided clarifying, became a recurring point of suspicion. This shift accelerated when he began appearing on the streams of Logan Brazy, a creator whose audience thrived on calling out performative behavior. For the first time, Josiah wasn't surrounded by supportive comment sections. He was being openly mocked, questioned, and challenged. The streams were brutal. His tattoos were dissected. His fake bravado was dismantled. His claims were met with laughter instead of admiration. One offhand comment, "I usually pay people to talk to me," became an instant meme, encapsulating just how detached he was from reality. More concerning, though, was how he reacted when asked about his age. He dodged the question every time, joked, deflected, changed the subject. In isolation, that might not mean much, but in the context of an audience filled with minors, it was a glaring red flag. Things escalated further when Josiah was confronted in real life. At a mall, his chain was taken off his neck on camera. The footage spread quickly. The man who branded himself as dangerous did nothing. Later, he claimed it was because he was on probation. Then he claimed he had scared the attackers afterward. No evidence supported that version of events. The internet saw what it saw, and the ridicule intensified. That alone would have ended most online careers. But the situation was far worse. An ex-girlfriend came forward describing severe physical abuse. According to her account, Josiah assaulted not only her, but also his grandparents. The assault charges he had previously flaunted online weren't proof of toughness. They stemmed from incidents involving a butter knife and elderly family members. She described being slapped, choked, threatened, and controlled. She described him breaking her phone, isolating her, and using violence to intimidate her into compliance. This was the same woman he had cried over on live streams, encouraging fans to make sad edits of their breakup. Another ex corroborated key details: fake ethnicity, painted eyebrows and mustache, no real money, hundreds of contacts with girls stored on his phone. An obsession with collecting explicit images, particularly feet pictures from as many girls as possible, including minors and even relatives of his partners. When confronted live, Josiah alternated between denial and incoherence. He presented old messages as if they were recent. He claimed screenshots were fake. He blamed girls for lying about their age. At one point, his current girlfriend appeared and claimed she had never been hit, only to later contradict herself in separate interviews. By the end of 2024, his reputation was in ruins. Streams that once entertained now openly condemned him. His name became shorthand for fraud, predation, and delusion. And then came 2025. In January, police arrested Josiah after an incident involving another TikTok influencer at a restaurant. Officers found him in possession of an illegal, modified firearm while he was already out on bond. Multiple people in the group were detained. The situation reportedly stemmed from online beef and the expectation of confrontation. Despite the severity, Josiah seemed unconcerned. From jail, he acted confident he would be released quickly. And he was. But the charges piled up. Bond violations, weapon possession, and behind the scenes, far worse. In July, authorities arrested him again, this time on charges of possession with intent to promote illegal material involving minors. The very allegations that had circulated online were now formal charges. At that point, the persona, The lies, the clout, the edits, none of it mattered anymore. Everything he had built was fake. His image, his toughness, his wealth, his relationships, even his appearance. And the one thing he couldn't fake forever was the consequences. The internet didn't ruin Josiah's life, it simply documented it, frame by frame, until there was nowhere left to hide.